Well, if you are in the market for an entry-level sedan and want the practicality of a boot and decent enough cabin space, then you currently have over 5 options to choose from. And the Ford Figo Aspire standing here behind me is the latest entrant into this highly competitive segment. But does it have what it takes to beat the two top dogs in this segment, the Maruti Suzuki Swift DZire as well as the Honda Amaze? We'll find out on the show today. Well, the first thing that I told myself as soon as I got inside the Swift DZire is the fact that the seats are the best in this segment, both in terms of cushioning as well as comfort. The Swift DZire really is head and shoulders above its competition. Well, the plastic quality on the DZire is excellent, and it probably is the best car in terms of the quality of materials used inside the cabin. It's exactly the same dashboard as the one on the Swift, and what that means is that it's a very good place in terms of practicality. There are a lot of places to keep your knickknacks in. There's one big glass holder over here. There's a small tray ahead of it where you can keep your wallet and cell phone, and the door bins have big bottle holders in them which can generally house those bottles from your home. So an excellent place in terms of practicality. Well, here I am now inside the cabin of the new Figo Aspire. Well, even though the cabin feels like a very well bolted together place, some users will be a little irritated and confused when they use this entertainment system over here, because this plethora of buttons can confuse when you are on the move, and this small little button for the volume control is a little fiddly to operate and can be a little annoying on those long highway trips. Well, when compared to the Maruti Suzuki Swift DZire and the Honda Amaze, the Figo feels very well bolted together, but the quality is definitely behind the Swift DZire, that's for sure, and the seats also aren't as comfortable as the ones on the Swift DZire. Well, where the Aspire has a clear advantage on both the Amaze as well as the DZire is in the fact that this is a very practical place to be in, and there are lots of places where you can keep your knickknacks in. You get this big box over here where you can keep your wallet and cell phone. You get a decently sized glove box. It's not really very generous, but it's decent. You of course get this big tray where you can keep your wallet, and you get 3 cup holders over here right next to the handbrake, and 2 each in the door bins, which makes it 7 in total to keep those bottles in. Well, here I am now inside the cabin of the Honda Amaze, and let's talk about some plus points first. The biggest plus point, of course, is that the overall build quality is pretty good and is at par with the Ford Figo Aspire. But yes, it is slightly behind the Maruti Suzuki Swift DZire. The Swift DZire still is the benchmark to beat when it comes to cabin quality. Well, in terms of the features, the Amaze comes with Bluetooth connectivity for the stereo as well as a GPS-based navigation system, and this is a feature which really should be very helpful if you are traveling at night or if you are lost in another town. But surprisingly, Honda have left out automatic climate control from even the top-end version of the Amaze, which is a bit of a disappointment. So, what Honda gives from one hand, it takes away from the other. Well, in terms of practicality, the Amaze's cabin gets 7 bottle holders, but unlike the Aspire where all the bottle holders are in the front and there's nothing at the back, this one has 5 in the front and 2 at the back, and we'll use a photo montage now to show you where they exactly are. Well, another plus point inside the Amaze's cabin is the fact that all the switchgear really does feel very tactile to operate, and it's very intuitive to use as well. Well, and unlike the Aspire, which really has a plethora of buttons which can get confusing on the move, this one is very easy, just like the DZire. In terms of seat comfort, the Amaze is at par with the Aspire. Another very neat touch inside the Amaze is the fact that these AC vents can be closed or opened, and they can really move around 360 degrees to have a better thoroughfare in whichever direction you want. So even the rear passengers really don't have any complaints. Well, here I am now in the back seat of the Swift DZire, and even when I am sitting pretty up straight, there is plenty of headroom for me, and I've still got about 3 inches to go. Well, knee room, as you can see, is just about adequate and par for the course for a car in this segment. Well, but I will stretch out my neck and say that the seats on the Swift DZire, both in the front as well as the back, are the best in this segment, not only for cushioning but also for overall comfort. Well, the Aspire clearly has the advantage over the DZire when it comes to knee room, but it can simply not match the Honda Amaze for sheer comfort as well as overall space in the back seats. Not only does the Aspire have lower knee room than the Amaze, it also has this huge transmission tunnel which really does limit its appeal as a proper 3-seater at the back. Well, if you enjoy chauffeur driven in the city or on the highway, then the Amaze is the best car for you. Another plus point inside the Amaze's cabin is the fact that the floor panel is very flattish, and what that means is that whoever's sitting here in the middle has got plenty of place to stretch his feet at, and that makes it a proper three-seater, unlike the Aspire, which has a tall transmission tunnel at the back. Not only are the Amaze's rear seats a comfortable place to be in, they're also very practical. You get big door bins which can generally house that bottle from your home, unlike the Aspire, which has nothing at the back. And you also get these nice and big pockets behind the front seats where you can keep your files and other knickknacks in. Seat cushioning, the backrest angle, and the overall ambience inside this car is pretty good as well. And what all that means is that the Amaze wins the battle of the cabin space from both its rivals. With a capacity of about 316 liters of space, the DZire's boot is much smaller than compared to most of its rivals. But then again, it's decent in space and can take all your luggage for that weekend getaway to the hills. There's minimal suspension intrusion, and the loading lip is very narrow as well. Well, the Amaze has the clear advantage when it comes to boot capacity. This car offers you a boot space of 400 liters, which makes the Aspire's as well as the DZire's boot look very small. And the other plus point, of course, is the fact that the aperture is really very wide, unlike the Aspire, which has a very narrow aperture. And as you can see, the opening is very narrow, the aperture is very narrow, and what that means is that if you have a big box to load, you'll have to be very careful. There's also a massive lip over here, so you'll have to put in your back into it and be careful while placing that big box. There's a lot of suspension intrusion as well, so just like the back seat, even the boot department is won over by the Honda Amaze. Even though the DZire is primarily a family saloon, it still manages to put a smile on your face, and that's largely due to the fact that the gearbox is very crisp, the brakes are very reassuring, and the steering offers a lot of communication and feedback. Well, this car of course comes with two engine options. There's a diesel motor, which is of course the 1.3 multi-jet diesel, and there's also a 1.2 petrol. Well, this car really does soak in those bumps very well, and the suspension on the Swift is very cushiony. It really offers you a very absorbent ride, and most of the bad surfaces do not pose any problems for the Swift DZire. Well, high-speed ride is good as well, and the DZire really does feel very stable when you are doing speeds in excess of 100 kph. Well, the DZire is also a very relaxing car to drive because the controls are so light. The gearbox, the clutch, as well as the steering is pretty light, but the steering wheel isn't so light that when you go out on the highway, it starts feeling nervous. There's a decent amount of weight in it when you push it on the highway. The gearbox on the Swift DZire is the best in this segment. I have absolutely no doubts about that, and it's a very crisp, very accurate, and very easy to operate unit. Well, Ford will offer you two engine options on the Aspire. There's a 1.2 litre petrol motor, and there's also a 1.5 diesel. The other good point is the fact that power delivery is very linear, and you don't really have to wait for that 2000 RPM to kick in. Power starts coming in from roughly about 1600, 1700 RPM, which is pretty good for a diesel engine. Well, the Aspire's diesel unit feels like a nice combination of the Amaze as well as the DZire. Its refinement levels are as good as the DZire's, and its power delivery is as good as the Amaze. So in that sense, it is the best of both worlds. Well, if you are someone who travels a lot on the highways, you will like the suspension setup on the Aspire. It has a slightly harsh edge to the ride, but it feels very stable and reassuring on the highway, and on flat surfaces it really does give you a lot of confidence of doing speeds in excess of 100 kph. Well, but the downside of a firm suspension is the fact that when you are maneuvering this car around a pothole road in the city, those bumps and those badly surfaced roads will make their presence felt into the cabin. Well, the steering on the Aspire is slightly on the heavier side, but that said, it offers you decent feedback and has decent communication as well. Well, when it comes to overall ride comfort, the Aspire simply cannot match the balance that the DZire offers. That car is still the benchmark in this segment for sheer ride comfort. So even though the Aspire isn't really the keen driver's car we expected it to be, it still is a pleasurable car to drive. Well, here I am now driving the Honda Amaze, and this car of course comes with two engine options. There's a 1.2 petrol and there's a 1.5 litre diesel motor, and it really is better to stick with the diesel because it offers you a lot of punch in the mid-range. While the Amaze is an excellent car to drive around in city, and that's largely due to the fact that the steering wheel is pretty light and the clutch is light as well, and that along with the super slick gearbox, which is very accurate and sporty to use, makes the Amaze a very easy car to drive around town. Well, in terms of overall handling as well as comfort, the Amaze and the DZire are pretty evenly matched, but yes, the DZire has the slight advantage over the Amaze when it comes to overall ride comfort. The suspension on the DZire is more absorbent. When it comes to overall highway stability, the Amaze and the Aspire are very closely matched. Well, even though the Amaze has a light steering wheel, it's not overtly light when you step out on the highway that it starts feeling nervous, and in that sense it is a very good car for those long highway trips. Well, in terms of ride and handling, the Amaze offers you a pretty corsetting ride when you are doing speeds in excess of 100 kph, and it offers you a very absorbent ride when you are in the city as well. It really does soak in those bumps pretty well. So in that sense, the Amaze is a car which is a pretty good one for those long highway trips as well as those small city transports. Well, this is a really tough battle between these three cars, and they really do offer a lot of things to a lot of buyers. But that said, it is the Honda Amaze which has the edge on both its main rivals. It offers you a big and spacious cabin, the best rear seat comfort, and the biggest boot, things which are very important in this category. All that with a punchy diesel engine, and that Honda brand name means that resale values will be very strong when it's time to resell, making this a much better package than the other two. Well, the number 2 slot goes to the Maruti Suzuki Swift DZire. It offers you the most comfortable front seats in this segment, the best cabin in terms of quality, and the best ride as well. It also has a very refined diesel engine, and if it had more space at the back and a bigger boot, who knows, it could have been the winner today. And in today's day and age where buyers want more than just looks, the Aspire fails to excite when it comes to overall driving dynamics as well as cabin space and comfort. And what all that means is that the Aspire is relegated to 3rd slot. Yes, the Aspire is a good looking car on the outside, but it fails to excite or excel in any area in particular.